Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this Saturday. Tomorrow's Sunday. I'm going to be doing another show tomorrow about other stuff, but today I wanted to talk about this mystery a little bit. You know what mystery I'm talking about? There's these, what they are calling drones. They're saying they're as big as cars, and they're flying every night in around places like Trump's golf club, exclusive golf club down there in New Jersey, and places like that, and places in Philadelphia, not in Philadelphia, but in Pennsylvania. Uh, they're in that area almost every night now, and they're seeing them. People are starting to get kind of spooked by them. So it's all over the news. If you guys haven't been paying attention to the news, and they don't know what these drones are, and they're coming in groups of like up to maybe 8 of them. So we're going to explore this a little bit right now. This isn't new. This particular group of sightings, drone sightings, is not new. This comes from last year. They were having these mysterious drones were swarming an Air Force base for 17 days, and it left the Pentagon baffled. It says top security officials in the United States remain stumped after an unknown fleet of drones breached restricted military airspace for 17 days straight last December. So that's December of 2023. 17 drones were breaching the airspace for 17 days straight, and it was at an Air Force base, big Air Force base, Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. That's where it was at. It says the drones would appear in the sky for about 45 minutes to an hour after sunset each night for 17 consecutive days. Former Air Force General Mark Kelly was the first made aware of the drone sightings in December of 2023. They showed up for 17 consecutive days, with officials at the Pentagon suspecting that they might have been deployed by Chinese or Russian agents to spy on the American military, it says right here. This article's come from Global News. These are real. It's happening right now. A lot of people, this is a mass sighting of whatever these things are. And so it's a mystery to me. They make a sound. I heard one of the videos. I was watching one of the videos, and it made a sound like a drone. Sounded like a drone. And for all respective purposes, it kind of fits the category of what a drone would be. But, you know, there's more to explore. So let's explore a little bit here. Back in the 1800s, there was mysterious sightings happening all across America. And you see this picture here? I'm going to enlarge it a little bit so you guys can see the picture better. There. This is what people thought that flight was going to take. Because back in the 1800s, they had hot air balloons. And people were flying. They were using them in the military and everything else. They went up from the heat of a fire. They'd have a fire near the gondola, and the hot air would rise inside the balloon. It's very old technology. They were using it back before the first winged aircraft, and people were speculating about the future, and they thought that this would be the future of aircraft. They thought that the hot air balloons that they had at the time would form a ship underneath it, and it would make what's called an airship. An airship. They believed in this. It was right out of steampunk in the 1800s. So guess what? It's really weird is all across America, they started actually seeing these things in the sky. It looked like this. A ship with the lights on, the port lights on, and everything else, and the gondola and the balloon and the whole 9 yards. Be this glowing ship. There's a number of cases of these ships coming down, and there'd be somebody on board that would be dressed like a captain or whatever, you know, and he'd be dressed in a period piece from the time, you know. Maybe he was smoking a pipe, and he might have a top hat on, and he dressed just like a person from the 1800s, circa 1800s, you know, and he'd hop off board, and he'd talk to the farmers and stuff. that seen the thing, and he'd say to them, I'm from, he'd name a city. I've come from Dodge City or whatever, all the way across America, and I need to refuel my thing. Will you help me refuel? I need some hay and water or whatever for my steam engine or whatever. Right? So they'd go and get him the stuff he needs, and he'd drop his anchor, and actually an anchor on a chain that would clank down to the ground, and they'd hook it on something. Imagine. Now, the people were seeing these things and actually witnessing this, and maybe talking to the occupant on board, the captain or whatever, and helping him out or everything. They would tell their newspaper nearby, in their city nearby, about all this, and they would write a newspaper report on it, and people would talk about what they saw for weeks, months, years even. And this was going on all across the country. There's hundreds of these sightings going on. A lot of them were going unreported, but they were reported during the time. So let's just read a little bit about this. Mysterious wave of airship sightings took place across the United States between 1896 and 1897. And there's plenty of mystery to go around, it says. In the late 1890s, strange airships started being spotted, sailing across the country's skies. It says lighter-than-air airships had been around since the 1850s. Their capabilities were more limited, and they were not nearly as big as these being observed. Witnesses described the ships as being 150 to 200 feet long. Enormous! Moving at speeds of roughly 135 to 150 miles an hour. The airships at the time were generally smaller and only moved at speeds of about 5 to 7 miles an hour. Hundreds of witnesses, it says, on November of 1896 in Sacramento, California, hundreds of witnesses observed a steady light attached to some kind of large vessel pass across the sky overhead. Some said they could hear voices singing from the ship. So again, we're seeing sounds mostly being done for the audience. The audience being the people of the 1800s on the ground looking at this thing that didn't understand what it was. They were like the audience, and this ship was playing as it went across the sky overhead. They could hear voices and singing from the ship. One guy said that he could hear a man issuing orders from the ship. "Throw her up higher, she'll hit the steeple," he said. According to the Lowry, the airship had a cigar-shaped body with wheels on the side and appeared to be powered by two men seating on a bicycle-like frame. So this is really high strangeness. But what we noticed about this was it was like they were... Whoever was doing these airships was making it so that it was just in advance of our technology of the time, but just slightly more advanced. Almost like showing us what we could do if we got our act together and we were to build an airship ourselves. Maybe they were trying to incentivize us. I mean, if we're talking about beings who possibly have technology levels that are way beyond ours, they can create any illusion that we would want to see, or that might give us impetus to move more toward an industrial revolution or whatever. I'm just speculating here because nobody knows for sure, but what we do know for sure is hundreds of eyewitnesses were seeing these things in the skies, and in or back around 1897. It says there were approximately 150 sightings. Now that's a lot of sightings. And probably a lot of those sightings had multiple eyewitnesses in roughly 20 different states. Then in April of 1897, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. It came to an abrupt stop. So, I found that interesting. And then, saucers over Washington, D.C. Now, this is an old comic book or whatever, but it's true. In 1952, there was a whole bunch of flying saucers flying around the Capitol. In 1952. And they were flying, it says here, It says the airport control tower radio operator verified the same sightings. They were over the restricted area of Washington, including the White House and the Capitol. And this shows an artist's conception in this old comic book. But that's true because there was a mass event that occurred in 1952 of flying saucers over Washington, D.C. and over the Capitol. But then 50 years to the day later, in 2002, guess what happened? It happened all over again. And see, there was a 1952 sightings that occurred. In 1952, Washington, D.C. UFO incident. From July 12th to July 29th, 1952, a series of unidentified flying objects were reported over Washington, D.C., and later became known as the Washington Flap or the Washington National Airport sightings. It was an invasion of Washington, it says, that happened in 1952. And then, if 50 years to the day later, it says military jets scramble over Washington, D.C. as a witness describes a blue UFO. The strange enough military jets were flying low over the home of Waldorf MD. What is that? What state is that? Maryland, I think it is. In the middle of the night. It was what he thinks he saw when he headed outside to look Friday that floored him. It was this object, he said. It was light blue object traveling at phenomenal rate of speed, Rogers said. The Air Force jet was right behind it, chasing it, but the object was just leaving him in the dust. I told my neighbor, I think those jets are chasing a UFO. Military officials confirmed that two F-16 jets from Andrews Air Force Base were scrambled on Friday after radar detected an unknown aircraft in the Washington area airspace. They scoffed at the idea that the jets were chasing a strange and speedy blue unidentified object. We had a track of interest, he said, so we sent up some aircraft. Major Douglas Martin, a spokesman for the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, said in Colorado, which has responsibility for defending U.S. airspace. Everything was fine in the sky, so they returned home. In other words, they chased it away. It was a blue colored. Great big flying saucer, and it just sped away from them and left them in the dust. But it was flying over Washington again in 1952. So what do we got going on now? I mean, this picture over my head right now was just taken a few days ago. And it's again flying, no, I'm not going to say flying saucers. I'm just going to say unidentified objects in the sky were spotted near Washington. And there's a UFO footage out there from multiple different angles of these craft that are over Washington again. What is there about the White House? I really like to fly over that, you know. Military jet scramble over D.C. That was the one that happened in 2002. So in 1952, we had 2002, and now we've got 2024, you know. So these are mysterious drones, though, you know, and what in the heck are these drones? They could be enemies. They could be a waste of taxpaying dollars, some U.S. military program to spy on themselves. I don't know. They've wasted taxpaying dollars on so many crazy things. I wouldn't put nothing past them. Could it be civilians? I very much doubt it's civilians. They get caught. They get caught the first time they try it. The drone would lead the police right back, or the FBI or whoever right back to them. I mean, they fly the drone. They find a launching site. This is how drones work. They find a launching site. They set the drone down on the ground. They take it off, and then they fly it to wherever they're going to fly it to, which is, they can't fly it out of range, which is probably about, 4 or 5 miles at the most, you know, because it operates off of a radio signal. They're standing there holding the radio controller in their hands. While they're flying the drone, they might have some sort of FPV helmet on, so they can see where the drone's going and stuff. And so they're flying the drone off 2 or 3 miles away, and then they have to bring the drone back to them. When they bring the drone back to them, they'd bring back the Pentagon to them. They'd bring back the police. They'd bring back the what is it, the FAA or whatever. They'd bring back everybody. All of them. They would be in prison for the rest of their life if it was civilians doing this. But yeah, there is a possibility that it says here that the Pentagon suspects they might have been deployed by Russian or Chinese agents. Uh, I don't know. Could they get? It seems to me they would have the same problem. They would get caught too the same way, wouldn't they? So what is this? This is something that doesn't fit in the box. This is a square peg, and all we have is a round hole for explanations now at this point in time. And so we're trying to drive this square peg of what these drones are and this mystery into a round hole. Nobody knows what they are, or how dangerous they could be, or what they could be doing up there nefariously. But yet they tell the public, hey, you know what? They represent no danger to the public or anything, you know. And I mean, how do they know? Because they don't even know what the hell they are. So how can they tell you it doesn't represent any danger? Well, that's just part of their trying to coup to the public to try to calm them down and keep them placent or whatever, you know. I guess we're going to find out. I guess we're going to have to wait and see what happens with all this. And maybe in the future we'll find out what these things were or are. Or maybe we'll never find out. Maybe it'll go down in the annals of unidentified, you know. Thank you guys for listening. You guys have a great day, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.